Hey people, today we're going to be reading Chapter 6 of I Survived the Bombing of Pearl Harbor in 1941. Chapter 6. Before Danny really understood what was happening, Aki had dragged him up to their house. If you could call it a house. It was smaller than the Crane's house and made of cement, with a metal roof. Still, there was something nice about it. The white flowers climbing up one of the walls, near the neat vegetable garden planted up in front. Aki's mother introduced herself on the way up. She was Mrs. Sudo. She explained that Aki's father was a fisherman and up on a 3-day trip. He'd be back tomorrow afternoon. Mrs. Sudo had Annie sit down on a little wooden table in front of the house. Aki scrambled onto his lap. He stayed there as Mrs. Sudo served lunch. The food was weird. Bowls of rice with raw fish and a salty sauce, but not so bad. Especially the bright orange fruit for dessert. It tasted as sweet as a lollipop. After they ate, Aki curled up on Danny's lap. Danny thought he would fall asleep, tuckered out by one full day of excitements. But then a formation of bomber planes flew over them. There were always military planes crisscrossing the skies above Pearl Harbor. There were Navy and Army airfields all around the harbor, not only Hickman, where Ma worked. Aki leaped up. B-18! He shrieked. 1 minute later, 3 more planes appeared. A-20! He shouted. And finally, Danny, B-17, Flying Fortress, B-17, Aki's favorite plane. Aki knows all the planes, Mrs. Sudo said, putting another plate of orange fruit in front of Danny. Aki, why don't you show Danny your book? Aki hopped off Danny's lap and shot into the house. He reappeared a minute later and handed Danny a worn sketchbook. He grinned proudly as Danny opened it. Danny stared at the pages, one filled with perfect drawings of bomber planes and warships. You drew these? Danny said in amazement. My papa, Aki said. My husband drew those, Mrs. Sudo explained. When he's home, he takes Aki out to the docks and they'll sit there for hours. He's really good, Danny said. He's an artist. Danny could hear the pride in Mrs. Sudo's voice. Fishing is just his job. I wish I could draw, Danny said. Actually, he already could draw, a little, but Mrs. Mills got him a sketchbook and told him to practice, but he never made much progress. My husband would love to help you learn, Mrs. Sudo said. Is your father in the military? No, Danny said. It's just me and my ma. She works as a nurse up in Hickam. We moved over here from New York City a couple of weeks ago. Your mother's very brave to come all the way over here to start a new life. Danny had never really thought of it that way. Ma looked so scared after Finn fell, but he guessed it was brave to leave the city that she lived in her whole life to travel halfway around the world. She's lucky to have a boy like you, Mrs. Sudo said. The words hung in the air for a minute. A boy like you. And then they seemed to slap Danny in the face. Tears came into Danny's eyes, but he felt like he had no idea why. Somehow, being here with Aki and Mrs. Sudo, some of that ice melted inside him. He had to get out of here. He stood up so quickly that he dropped Aki's book onto the floor. Thank you for the lunch, Danny said, picking up the sketch pad and handing it to Aki. But, I have to go. Danny, Aki shouted. Stay! You're welcome to stay the afternoon, Mrs. Sudo said. Until your mother returned from work. I'm sorry, Danny said. I'm sorry, but I have to leave. And without even a wave goodbye, he ran down the hill and into his house. Oh, that is the end. Goodbye, people.